Good morning. Thank you so much for waking up with BT on this Monday morning. I am Caryn and for this very first edition of Paikin on Politics, esteemed journalist Steve Paikin.
That looks very fancy, I have to say.
I know, the open. Our graphics went
here.
all out.
Yeah, I can tell.
Steve, good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It is such a pleasure to have you, especially on such a fast-moving morning here. I've got to ask you before we begin, though, how that early morning alarm clock was.
My alarm has not gone off in maybe 15 or 20 years because I haven't needed one to get up. I'm up early anyway, but to be sure, I probably was up every hour on the hour all night long just to make sure.
And you were here nice and early, too.
I got here pretty early today. Don't count on that for tomorrow, but wanted to be on time first day, right?
Well, it is such a pleasure to have you. We are so fortunate to have you on a morning where there's just so many fast-moving developments in the Middle East. Let's begin with what happened this weekend. Joint U.S.-Israeli military strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, throwing the future of the Islamic Republic into uncertainty. I think symbolically, Steve, the death of Iran's supreme leader is very, very important for the people of Iran and for Canadians with Iranian ties who are hoping that foreign military intervention will bring about regime change and could possibly create an opening for them to realize their democratic aspirations. But I think that's the question now politically is what does this mean for the people of Iran?
And we're not going to know that for a long time. I remember in 1979 when the hostages were taken and hidden, actually some of them in the Canadian embassy, and when this theocracy began. And it started with a great deal of promise. It took over what had been a very corrupt regime run by the Shah of Iran. And there were actually considerable hopes at the beginning. And then it very much went off the rails. And of course, Iran has been, in terms of international terrorism, in terms of a whole bunch of other things, a disaster for the last 47 years. What are the things we're looking for in the days ahead? We have to see whether or not there is an opposition that is prepared to take over and actually run the country. It's one thing to go in and drop bombs and, start a war and get rid of the old guys. Who are the new guys who can take over? Are they unified? Do they have an organizing principle? These are the things, politically speaking, we need to know. And 100,000 people in this city of Iranian background are obviously desperate to know this information.
I think, too, Iran is a very large, complex country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the authoritarian regime is fairly institutionalized. Like, there are multiple centers of power. What does that signal to you? Like, I mean, we saw retaliatory attacks from Iran on Israel, on other Gulf nations where American bases are based. Does that signal to you that the regime is still very much intact?
Well, pick up on the first thing you said. Iran is big.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 times the size of Texas. It's bigger than every American state except Alaska. So if you're talking about trying to control a territory, there is a lot to control. Here's I'm going to put a very, very uncomfortable question forward here, but the question actually is, will the Iranian Revolutionary Guard be prepared to fire on their own people? Are they prepared to kill tens of thousands, if not more, of their own people in order to stay in power? Because that's the question you have to ask yourself right now. If they're not prepared to do that, there is a shot at some kind of political transition and maybe a new day for Iran. If they are prepared to create that much carnage, then you have to be very pessimistic about what's going to happen.
As recently as a few months ago, though, like Iran, it killed thousands of its own citizens, peaceful protesters who were out on the streets protesting against the regime, pro-democracy protesters.
40,000 in a couple of days, worse than Tiananmen Square in 1989 in China.
Like representatives from Oman said that diplomatic talks on Iran's nuclear program were advancing. But I guess my question to you is, can we ever trust diplomacy with a regime that has been so violent and oppressive?
Certainly has not been apparent so far, right? And presumably, now we don't know this for sure because Donald Trump's really made very few comments beyond the original comments he made in the middle of the night. But presumably the reason he launched the attack was that he saw that negotiations were getting absolutely nowhere and that he didn't feel that diplomacy had a chance. And therefore, he launched this military strike. We'll see where it goes. I mean, the news, when war happens, completely unexpected things will happen. And we've seen this morning already. I mean, 3 American planes were shot down by Kuwait, which is an American ally, friendly fire. All bets are off once you start shooting. The question is what happens after the shooting stops. And we don't know any of those answers yet.
I want to pick up on your point about how how Donald Trump is justifying this attack. He called it, he said he had to defend Americans against what he called an imminent threat.
Yes.
Didn't provide any proof of that, though. And then also, you know, he continues to claim that U.S. strikes last spring completely obliterated Iran's nuclear program. I wonder, given Canada's position that Mark Carney has come out in full support of these strikes without Canadian intervention, can we expect that the Prime Minister was perhaps given more proof of what Trump called an imminent threat before backing regime change?
I wouldn't think so. I think this is Mark Carney making a very realpolitik decision, saying there's only so many things I can fight the United States on at this stage of the game if I want to get a trade deal, and this is just not one of them that I'm prepared to go to the wall on.
Okay. Steve, I have to leave it there. We are out of time. Really appreciate your analysis this morning.
Now, is this it, or do we do this again tomorrow?
We're going to do this again tomorrow.
And the day after?
And the day
and
after.
The day after.
We hope you'll continue showing
Just checking.
up.
I'll be here.
Steve Paikin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen.